Now, Trump's budget, which is really just a blueprint created by the Republicans in Congress, cuts billions of dollars in taxes for the wealthiest Americans at the expense of poor people and disabled people. I mean, that's exactly what it does. $800 billion gets cut from Medicaid. Nearly $200 billion cut from food stamps. Free lunches, help for the homeless people, all gone. All so they can give tax cuts to the corporations and the very, very wealthiest Americans. Okay. Now, knowing how bad this is, you have Office of Management and Budget Director Mick Mulvaney having to go out there and defend these unconscionable cuts that are, you know, to some of the most popular, extremely helpful programs. Now, he does this in an incredibly tone-deaf way. Just look at the framing that he's trying to use. I'm just trying to protect the taxpayer. Watch.
Veterans see more money here. It's a classic example of looking at the budget through the eyes of the taxpayer. I put myself in the role of the person who's actually taking the money from you as taxpayer and giving the money to someone else in terms of a benefit. And if I can look you in the eye and say, look, I need to take this money from you so that I can help this injured vet, I can do that in good conscience. I can look you in the eye, and my guess is you're okay with that. I am a lot less comfortable to the point of not wanting to look you in the eye and say, look, I need to take this money from you to give to this person over here who really isn't disabled but is getting a disabled benefit, or this person over here who is supposed to use the money to go to school but isn't actually going, or a program that is supposed to encourage you to graduate from high school or from college but is only 6% effective. That's the type of compassion we talk about, and that's the type of different perspective that we bring to the budget. And it's one of the things that I like to talk about when we talk about the veterans. People don't mind paying their taxes as long as they know that that money is not being wasted and frittered away.
Okay, now, look, yeah, he's right. People don't mind paying their taxes as long as they know that it's getting used for something useful. Like, that explains why Medicare for All is so incredibly popular. Like, yeah, we want our money to be used for our own health care and not for endless war. Now, of course, he doesn't get that irony. Now, his statement, too, when he talked about, oh, the disabled person, he's not really disabled. And so I don't want to give, I don't want to take money from the taxpayer and give it to that guy or the guy who's going to go to school but isn't actually going to school. Now, basically, that's painting a picture. That's straw manning, right? It's basically saying that these people, they're wasting the money. They're not really disabled. I mean, come on. Now, I've got some facts that counter that narrative. For one, disability is a very high bar to meet. You know that over 2/3 of disability applicants get rejected. That's a pretty high bar. Only 36% of claims, initial disability claims, get approved. That's just 1/3. Now, the fraud rate for that he, of course, said he mentions, some studies put it at about 1%, sometimes less than 1%. Not only that, but the United States, we do not have a very generous system when it comes to disability benefits. In fact, according to the OECD, we actually have the most restrictive and least generous disability benefit system of all the other OECD countries. So we're actually very, very restrictive on this. We're not giving out benefits and money by the boatload. That's just not true. Of course, they like to peddle this narrative because, well, I want to go and I want to cut these programs because he can't wait to do that. So what Mulvaney is doing is, again, he's inflating problems with these programs that are actually not really big problems at all, in order to justify getting rid of these programs, cutting the money, and funneling it to his donors. Now, I want to give you another clip of Mulvaney spreading more bullshit. He's going to talk about compassion.
We're no longer going to measure compassion by the number of programs or the number of people on those programs, but by the number of people we help get off of those programs. We're not going to measure compassion by the amount of money that we spend, but by the number of people that we help. And that is how you can get 3% economic growth. That is how you can balance the budget in 10 years. That is how you can borrow money from people with still promising and intending to pay it back from them. That is how you can help people take charge of their own lives again. And that is the part of the budget that deals with the American greatness.
American greatness. Yeah, okay. Now, one particular thing I had a problem with is we'll no longer measure compassion by the number of programs or the number of people on those programs. So if you measure success on how many people you kick off those programs, well, you could say, hey, man, we cut this program and we got rid of 10 million people. We are super, super successful. Well, it doesn't make those 10 million people less poor. Unless, of course, you actually make sure that they have better wages and better jobs. But you don't want to do that. You just want to cut these programs and say, mission accomplished, buddy. We cut all these programs, we saved all this money, but the people are still poor. But wait, that's not a success. It's ridiculous. Now, finally, what was on that clip, or I'm sorry, what wasn't on that clip, he said you have to have compassion for the folks who are receiving the federal funds, but you also have to have compassion for the folks who are paying it. Now, cutting Medicaid by $800 billion and kicking 10 million people off their health care. Well, that's your compassion? That's an example of your compassion? Doesn't seem very compassionate. No, his compassion is about the donors. How much money the wealthiest people and corporations are paying you and your friends in order to cut their taxes. This budget is nothing more than a giveaway for very, very rich people on the backs of the very poor and the needy. Look, he doesn't give a shit about the normal everyday taxpayer who's struggling to barely remain in the middle class. You're not making life easier for them. No, what you're doing is you're making it easier for the corporations to rob them. Now, let me give you a good example. The estate tax. It's a major piece of this budget, right? Get rid of the estate tax. According to the Tax Policy Center, the top 10% of income earners pays nearly 90% of this tax. Now, you also have a quarter paid by the richest 0.1%. So that's their big ideas. Oh man, we're going to get rid of the estate tax to help the American people. We got to get rid of the death tax because that's what it's called. Got to get rid of the death tax. It's hurting the American people. You know that, again, 90% of this tax is paid by the top 10% of Americans. It doesn't affect a whole lot of regular people. That person that's struggling in the middle class to hang on, he's not being affected by the estate tax. It's ridiculous. In fact, you only have a handful of small businesses and farms that end up paying that tax. In fact, according to the Tax Policy Center, only roughly 50 small businesses and 50 small farm estates nationwide will face any estate tax in 2017. 50. We got to get rid of the estate tax. Got to get rid of the death tax. It's so important to help the average American worker. The 50 small businesses and farm estates that will pay this, plus the wealthiest estates out in the like Donald Trump's estate. Got to make sure the Trump kids are taken care of. I'm pretty sure they're going to do okay. Not only that, but okay. Again, this doesn't help you. It helps Trump. What about capital gains taxes? Okay. Well, it turns out capital gains taxes also, repealing that would also help the richest Americans. But Jeff, you don't understand. What about the people who are in the middle class that own stocks and bonds? Because middle class people, they own stocks too. You got to look out for them. The capital gains tax that hurts them. Oh, does it? Really? Now, well, it's actually true that, yes, some middle class Americans do own stocks and bonds. Those stocks and bonds tend to be stashed in tax-sheltered retirement accounts. In those accounts, the capital gains rate does not apply. You are not charged capital gains taxes. Okay. Now, furthermore, according to the Washington Post, over the past 20 years, more than 80% of the capital gains income realized in the United States has gone to 5% of the people. And about half of all capital gains have gone to the wealthiest 0.1%. So, how does getting rid of the capital gains tax, how's that going to help you? How's that going to help regular people? It's not. And actually, capital gains, as well as the estate tax, is actually a significant source of income for the federal government. That income goes to, or I should say that revenue goes to infrastructure. That's needed. That's necessary. And right now, we shouldn't be cutting those sources of income to do infrastructure, we should be increasing that revenue. We should be getting more because we have trillions of dollars worth of infrastructure we need to fix right now. Our roads and bridges are falling apart. But of course, we're not going to do that. Now, Mulvaney is right about one thing. He is showing a lot of compassion for the taxpayer, the wealthiest taxpayer. Because again, a lot of wealthy people do pay a majority of the taxes, even though their effective rates are far lower in some circumstances than regular middle-class people, thanks to things like capital gains. But look, how about if you really want to show compassion for the middle-class taxpayer, that regular person you claim to protect, how about you stop wasting money on border walls that aren't going to work? Or how about stopping the endless war in the Middle East? Or stopping the massive giveaways to big corporations in the form of subsidies to oil companies? Oh, you're not going to do that? Well, if you're not going to do that, then you need to shut the fuck up about your compassion. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.